At the beginning, it was really hard. It was really hard. I said to myself, where am I? Because it feels like, I mean, it felt like I was in the middle of nowhere. I didn't like, the closest city is a city called Aachen, which is
Mm.
here in Germany, and it's about 35 kilometers away from us. And it's a small city. It's got like 200,000 people, but it's still a city, but it's still 35 kilometers away. So when I got here, I was like, where am I? There's, sheep and cow and all of these things. So it became very challenging and actually quite isolating because, my husband was lucky. He went to work all day and he had his Italian colleagues and it was great. And then I was here with my daughter who then, started school. And I was like, what am I going to do with myself? So how am I going to survive this period? Because it, there was nothing familiar about it. I mean,
Mm.
we don't have German origins. We didn't speak the language at all at the beginning. Now we speak a little bit. Our kids speak better than we do, obviously. That always happens. But it was scary. It was quite scary at the beginning. It was scary. So I threw myself into to work. And I decided that in this period, I was going to work on a PhD because I said I have to do
Mhm.
something and challenge myself. So I decided to get a PhD. And I also turned to podcasts. I found podcasts. I knew they existed, but then I found them, and they completely helped me survive. So
Yeah, it's something that I found interesting from your book actually, like that you experience, like, I don't know, the whole unmotivation, the isolation that a lot of expats feels when they go to a strange place because of, I don't know, because of relations and the other person having a job and you're alone at home, and these kind of things are kind of common when I
okay,
interview a lot of expats. So I think it's a kind of pattern over there, and I find interesting from your point, or from the book, and what you were doing, is that you found a way of connecting through podcasts, which is not. You are the first person that I heard that they felt like more not accompanied, but it was like dealing with the struggles of expats through podcasts. It's the first time that I heard it, and I would love to hear in which sense, like, you felt like embraced by it, like it helped you pass the time, or it helped you like listen to other experiences. Which kind of podcast were you listening, or are you listening?
sure, yeah. So I mean, I being in my late 30s at the time, it was very hard because it's easier to make friends when you're younger, I think.
Mm.
But when you get a little older, it becomes a little harder. So I was having difficulty connecting with people. And then, like I said, my husband was at work all day, and I was like, you know what? So I started like just listen. I knew what podcasts were because I taught journalism at university. So we listened to Serial. We explored we explored it as a storytelling, great example of storytelling. But then I was like, let me see what else I can find. So I started finding podcasts that could actually help me with what were, in essence, my daily struggles. So, feeling like I couldn't make friends. Well, I would listen to an episode of NPR's Life Kit, and somebody on Life Kit would talk about like how it's awful to make friends in your late 30s, how it's, people would rather have a root canal than actually go and socialize with people. So, like, what they did was they kind of helped me to feel understood, like, oh, there's somebody else who's actually feeling this. So it helped in that regard. And then, there were also times when I just needed to laugh. So I would just, find podcasts that were comedy related, and I
Mm.
would listen to stand up comedy that would just make me crack up because I needed that. Or there would be a podcast, I like stories, so maybe I just wanted to escape, and I would listen to sort of limited storytelling podcasts that had a beginning, middle, and end. But then I also wanted to be connected to home. And I wanted to know what was going on in New York. Not that I couldn't do that on reading the news on the web, because of course I could do that. But there's something special about podcasts. There's that sense of intimacy about having those voices in your ears. that just makes it more special. So I felt, and I know some people like think this might be a little weird, but I like felt that at some moments that some of those podcast hosts were like my friends, because it was like, oh, Maria's going to talk about this today. Oh, I know how she feels about that. So it was pretty, like it created this sense of like, the sense of friendship and the sense of relationship. And it's really what I needed, because I wasn't getting that from my local community, but I was getting that from all of these podcast hosts. So I really listened it for everything. Like I said, I missed my prayer and reflection. So I found podcasts by the Jesuits who would help me fall asleep at night. Okay. Which is maybe what I needed. Or any other issue that I was having, I kind of just turned to podcasts. And I mean, I still do that today. I mean, I have my favorite podcasts, the ones that I listen to, and I look for those voices. Like I want to hear, you know, my Up First podcast from NPR. I want to hear Michael Barbaro at the New York Times tell me about what the big issues are in New York. I do want to get great storytelling from Cautionary Tales and Tim Hartford that I listen to. So these podcasts are kind of, you know, they're there for me. And I mean, if I need a dose of like a New York voice, oh, I get it. And I also listen to Italian podcasts too. And so I listen to like, you know, podcasts that like I've been listening to the Cecilia Sala podcast, who was the journalist who was abducted. So I listen to her daily podcast every day. It's just, they really helped fill a void and in that difficult time for me. And in essence, I just kept listening. So I listen a lot now. Whenever I get a free moment, I can listen. And you, as you know, podcasts are great because, you know, they're on demand. They're there. I can stop when I want to. I can pick up a kid from the bus and then do something else. Or so they're just it's just such a flexible medium that fits in great with busy lives. So it's fantastic. And they totally helped me. I mean, I have to say they were like my life buoy. When I was by myself here, I was like, oh, I'm gonna just put these people in my ears and just listen and and feel better, or get some good advice, or figure out what to do on the weekend. You know, even that.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think like I also do that, like especially the part of connecting back home. Feels like very relatable. It's
Right.
the way of like listening to someone explaining what's going on while you are not there, which is nice. I wanted to ask you something because I don't have the opportunity that much times to. I had some mothers in the podcast, but I always find very interesting the fact of like motherhood and parenthood in an expat or being abroad. How has been the experience of becoming a mother while living in a country that it's not yours?
Wow. That's a good question. And it's been really crazy. Okay. I have to say, because I mean, I had one child in Italy and then I had another child here in Germany. So in Italy, it was, you know, I remember when my daughter was born and we had to start like weaning her off of milk and she was going to eat like food. Well, I went to my Italian pediatrician and I thought like he was going to do what my sister's doctor pediatrician did in New York, which was, you know, buy some baby carrots, buy some baby peas, and start to test the baby and see what he or she likes. So that's what I thought I was going to do. But then I went to my Italian pediatrician and he was like, you need to start cooking. And I was like, what? And he told me that I needed to start making vegetable soup for my baby, that this baby was going to have Parmigiano that was aged 36 months and olive oil at 6 months old. And I was at the doctor's office with my notepad because I mean, I was like, is this guy crazy? Like he wants me to give my child like Parmigiano cheese at 6 months. So but it, you know, she loved it and it worked. I took good notes. I figured out how to make it. And I gave it to her. Then when I had to do the same thing for my son in Germany, like I thought, you know, what are these people going to tell me to do? And the doctor didn't even come in for this appointment. Basically, the assistant told me, just go to the store and pick up whatever you want and just test it out on the baby. And I was like, you know, and they have weird food in Germany for kids. But it's like, I think maybe it's weird, but maybe it's not weird. But for me, it was weird because it was like German food, Rinderfleisch, and all this weird stuff. So I was like, they want me to give this to my kid. So I was like, I can't do this. So then I actually did it the Italian way with my son as well. So it's completely different styles. And I thought that like, I used to think that like my way was the best way, but I have to say it's actually not, because I've been able to like pick the good things from all of these different countries. So there's a great respect for food in Italy, but in Germany, there's also this great sense of like giving kids more freedom. Like I noticed that like, you know, the kids here that are like 6 years old, they walk to the bus, they walk to school by themselves. Like in Italy, people would never do that to a 6-year-old. You just wouldn't let them go by themselves. So there's this sense of community here where I can let my kids walk to the bus. I don't do it. I'm not ready yet. But there is a sense of community that you can let your kids go walk to the bus, that your neighbors will keep an eye on him or her. So I've been able to pick the good things from all of these places, but it's different. It's different. It's just, sometimes it's just about accepting, and it's also about learning, because you know you realize that your way is not the best way, that it can improve. So that's been good for me.
Maybe one last question related to this one.
Sure.
What about the hospitals and the school systems? Because also you need to get used to whatever you are system wise, and language, I assume. Like it's not as
Yes.
easy as you need to adapt to it,
Sure. I mean, I will say that like from a school system perspective, my kids, they go to an international school.
Okay.
So my son goes to the German section at this international school, and they are they're very rule heavy. While my daughter, who's in sort of the Canadian section, they're kind of less strict. But like, you know, my kids, like my son is not allowed to leave school early for any reason. It's just very strict. Not so not unflexible, unlike that I find with the Canadians per se. But in terms of hospital wise, I can tell you a funny story that when I had my son, I wanted to have a cesarean section because I had a cesarean section when I had my daughter. So I decided that I just wanted to have a second one. I didn't want to try to have a baby naturally. So I went to in Germany, they do this kind of hospital tour. So, and then you visit, and I went there and I was like, listen, I want to have a cesarean section. And I pulled out my calendar and I said, hey, and I was looking at my calendar. I was like, you know what? I don't want to do it this day because my daughter's going to be home from school. And I said, but this day is actually very good. But I don't want to also do it on the 20th because that's my husband's birthday. And I wouldn't like them to have the same birthday. And they looked at me and they were like, this is Germany. We decide when you are going to have this. We don't want you to do this. So it was a very different experience. They were not flexible at all with my planning and my scheduling and how I wanted to fit this in. They were like, it's not going to happen. This is the week you're going to do it. We decide. So, definitely different.
So a little bit more strict, more German in that sense, and
yes.
And you end having a son with the same birthday as his dad, or
I
no?
did.
Yes?
I did.
Of
yes,
course,
they
of
didn't
course.
care. Yes, he's born on the same day, October 20th, as my husband. Yeah, they didn't care.
Of
So,
course, it needed to be the day. Of course, yes.
Yes, if it was that. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Cool. So for closing a little bit this first section of the episode, I would like to ask you life hack, an advice, a tip to anyone who would like to move to the countries that you lived in, or even like if you want to tackle it from the motherhood perspective, whatever you have in mind.
Sure. I mean, if there's one thing I would say to whoever sort of decides to leave their home country and move someplace else, is to create a home for yourself, no matter where it is, no matter how big or small it is, and no matter how, for what time it is, because I think that that is really important, because after a day out in this other country, whether you're working, whether you're, just being a tourist, whatever it may be, because your husband or your spouse, your partner is out working, you need to come back to a place that feels like home. And that is really important. I remember a lot of my husband's colleagues who had also come here to Germany for the first for 4 years, for a 4 year posting, had decided to sort of leave all their stuff in Italy and just kind of, wing it here. And I mean, I had learned from my experience moving from Rome, from New York to Rome, that it was important for me to have things. So, and it may sound materialistic, but I brought my things with me because it's nice to have those pictures of my family. It's nice to have that little frame that my dad gave me, because it reminds me of him. So create a home for yourself. No matter, even if you think you're going to stay there for just a year, because you want to go at night when you're home, you want to be in a place that feels good, that makes you feel good. And if you have those things with you, because the thing is, we're human beings and we are attached to things. And they don't have to be the most materialist thing. They're just sentimental things. So bring those things with you, create a home for yourself, so that when you come back at the end of the day, you feel like you're in a good place and you're reminded of those subtle things that always give you joy, which could be like family, um, you know, just great dinnerware. It could even just be great dinnerware. I love, or your morning coffee cup that is like your go-to cup, where you start your day. So create a great home for yourself. That's what I would say to anybody who's moving overseas or to another country, nearby or far.